This is part 2 of a video called, I think I called it, a Strictly Taboo Subject Part 1. I'm lounging on my porch in a chair that kind of reclines. It's very delightful. I spoke of the Israel situation and thought that I should maybe give you some more materials with which you can discern for yourselves or look things up. Like I did. I was very appalled when I learned of this, what's really going on over there. I'm going to have to probably wade into the media and its role in our lives. I call it the corporate media. It's owned by 6 corporations, and the same people that sit on the boards of various media outlets also sit on big oil boards and things like that. So it's very corrupt. They have an agenda, the Western media in general, to push a certain narrative and protect certain people. And one of those entities they protect would be the state of Israel and the evil. And really, I use that word, I guess, it's the only word that comes to mind about Bibi Netanyahu and the whole sordid situation over there. In my first part, I mentioned Miko, Peled, the general's son. I'm really cold. It's hard for me to do this out here. In fact, I might move into the house here. I can't do it while lounging, though. I was turned on to the whole reality of the situation, but I'm going to have to go back and kind of give you a little bit of history in terms of how I arrived at my decision, how I fleshed it out. I studied with a rabbi for a year in order to convert to Judaism. They don't let you in. In fact, rabbis turn you away 3 times before letting you into the tribe. And in that course of study, I had to read over 50 books. I ended up reading 70. I was really into it. I was a believer, and I really believed I was doing the right thing. I also had to go in front of a panel, 3 rabbis, where they interview you and see if you're ready to take the plunge and so forth and so on. And during that time, I remember my rabbi telling me that there's a group of Jews that do not accept the state of Israel as legitimate. Sound of a truck. I live close to the highway. Oh dear. Anyhow, they don't accept the state of Israel. They don't believe it's legitimate because only God can bring in that era. And I didn't think much about it at the time, and life went on, and I was quite faithful for quite a few years. And then a person called me on the phone and turned me on to Miko. Peled wrote a book called The General's Son that exposes the reality of that world. And mind you, he was born and raised over there, and his father was instrumental, was a general in the IDF, and he went and got the records from their minutes and so forth and so on, and found out a lot of shenanigans that had unfolded. For example, one thing is in 1967, I think it was, you've heard the story here through our narrative that Israel suddenly was attacked by all these Arab nations and Egypt and all that jazz. Well, the reality of the situation, this was unearthed by Miko Peled in the notes of the meetings, was that really the Egyptian army wasn't ready at all, and it was a perfect time for Israel to launch an offensive move on this nation, and that's just what they did. And of course they expanded their territory. All you have to really do, because I don't want to go past 5 minutes with this, all anybody really has to do is just think, why does the Gaza exist? Why is it there? Where would these people have come from? What's the deal? I mean, ask yourself that legitimately. And why is it that any mention of Israel results in being called an anti-Semite, or in my case, a self-hating Jew? There is a philosopher, Voltaire, who said you can always tell who is in charge of things or runs things, I'm paraphrasing, by those that you can't criticize. So Also, they're very on the muscle, as my father used to say. You know, you have to admit that Israel has a right to exist, and oh, can she defend herself, and all this. It's over the top, psychopathic, sociopathic, clutching at straws kind of behavior. And I will say, I'm going to go 6 minutes here. I will say that when I studied with my rabbi, this was the narrative I was taught, that any criticism of Israel, don't you let that fool you. That's a new anti-Semitism. And don't let anybody tell you any differently. Well, and I believed it. I believed the narrative. Our media here does not tell the truth in terms of what's going on there. It's a travesty. It's an apartheid state. And we should be doing everything we can to open people's eyes and support the Palestinians. There's a movement called the BDS movement. Please look it up. I am going to sign off now. I'm fixing to go 6 minutes, and I'm breaking my promise to you. This is Lounging with Lisa, part 2 of my Israel expose. Live from my porch where I'm freezing really quite heavily. I'm going to start shaking here any moment now. Please press like and subscribe, and I hope you investigate this on your own. Thank you so much for tuning in.